I don't do the podium so well. I once talked on the podium and proceeded to fall off the podium. So ever since, I like to be on terra firma and get right down here. You know, this is a particular honor for me when I think on my uncle's side and my mom's side. They had bars all over Dublin. And I think on that side also, when I think on that side also, there were coopers. They made barrels. And going up to see my grandmother in Manor Street, and some of you from Dublin may know Manor Street, and I would smell the barrels and see my uncles making these cooperage, these barrels. Let me tell you just how much money they made. In my first job with Irish Distillers, and I was fortunate enough at 26, I was the only Irishman to have a formal degree in brewing and distilling. Now, most Irish people think they have a degree in brewing. But I'm not talking about using your arm. I'm talking about a formal degree. And so when I got my first job, I had a PhD and all this good stuff, I was making about 30% more than my dad. He was an electrician with ESB. So I thought I was doing... I don't think I need it, do I? Thank you very much. So anyway, I told my uncle, he said, "Pearse, how much..." Back. Hold it up there. So all my life I've been trying to get back to being a cooper. So I'll tell you a little bit about our story, but not really our story. Our as in our story, and our as in the opportunities.
Tried.
Insanity. I mean, that's the definition of insanity. If you're expecting a different result, you're not going to get a different result. atmosphere, I, for one, am not going there. I'm coming to be entertained. I'm also coming to be comfortable. I don't want any aggro. I want to be comfortable. And so, we're coming also to be engaged with the owner. And therefore, as you look at the range of things that you do, whatever you do, you have to make a profit. And without making a profit, you can't reinvest. Without reinvesting, you can't grow. So don't be ever ashamed of the fact that we're here to make money. What's your objective? What is it you're trying to do? Let's be different. You may think that I've got sort of the middle of the ocean accent. So born in Dublin. And when I go to the States, they say, well, how do you like our country? I come back here, they say, well, how do you like our country? Never say how long you've been away, because I'll say, guys and yes and whatever. You've got to be different. One of the things I say to my people is be different. Whatever it is, be different. Your talk has to be different. Henry Ford once said, if I gave people what they wanted, they wanted fast horses. They didn't want fast cars. They didn't know what a car was. They wanted a fast horse. To give people not what they want, but what you anticipate they'll want. Steve Jobs was exactly the same. You've got to have a brand. You've got to have a brand, and you've got to be true to your brand. So what is a brand? Starbucks is a brand. And why do we go into Starbucks and pay $6 or whatever it is for a coffee? It's really powerful. There's only 50 much prefer Yulee. But why do I pay $6? This is Starbucks. Because it's a place to go. It's not home. It's not the office. It's a place to go. When my daughter was studying in Chicago, I should have taken shares out in Starbucks. Because she was constantly with her friends in Starbucks. A gathering. Starbucks. It's not kind of an Irish pub. You go there and you hear the yarns and you hear the talks. It's a gathering. For heaven's sake, behind the bar, make sure you have somebody who can tell the story. My wife will always give you the punchline before the story. That's a gift. Tell the story. Let's think about it. Building a brand one glass at a time. Why bother with branding? There's a number of reasons you bother with branding. The first one is price premium. You pay a premium for that brand. The second reason is that people will buy more. When you have a brand, people tend to be comfortable, and with that comfort comes a desire to buy more. Customers. You have on one hand customers, and then you have satisfied customers. There's a huge difference between a customer and a satisfied customer. And somehow or other, in the middle, we have to get that connection. We create raving fans. Oliver, with your founding fathers, your system, where you buy a barrel, they're raving fans, they're raving nuts. It doesn't matter, they're raving fans. And he's connected to them. You can buy a barrel of his whiskey, he's going to put it aside, he's going to look after you. And after them, when it finally matured, you're going to have bragging rights on the street. This is my whiskey. Dingle might have done it, but it's my whiskey. That's a raving man. Give you another example of a raving man. A friend of mine is called Carl Dawson. And Carl is part of my raving fans. My raving fans enable you to introduce new products. And as you look at raving fans, you get customer loyalty. Pabst Blue Ribbon was the lousiest beer known to mankind. And they went out of business. And it was like your father's beer or your grandfather's beer. And they went out of business. But guess what? You know, it's very strong today because the kids somehow or other bought into Pabst Blue Ribbon. They brew 6 million barrels of beer every year. They don't have a brewery. And they brew as much beer as they want. Why? Because they have closer. They're determined to make Blue Ribbon drinker. I'm not saying the beer is good, but they have loyalty like you won't believe. Image. Here's my buddy, Carl Dawson. And Carl's boy Sean was getting married, and he decided he was going to have a Kentucky wedding with Kentucky products. That meant our whiskey, that meant our beer, that meant our Bluegrass Sundown, and this is what you got. First of all, Kentucky Ale. They even had the instant updates in country living. The bugler here is Bucky Sally. He comes from our racetrack, and he was there announcing it. But everything was in and around Kentucky. It was a raving fan. It was different. Everywhere. Self-appointed raving fan. Incidentally, so is this guy. 60,000 people went on to see why it was that he came back to our brewery, what he thought about it. So fans have to be created, and pubs have to do precisely that also. This lady here, wow. Oprah Winfrey. Now, how many of you subscribe to Oprah Winfrey's magazine? But don't be ashamed. Anybody? I like it because the rouge. If you believe that. But when Oprah Winfrey says something and she discovers something, let me tell you, your sales go through the roof. And so she said that there were 50 things, she's a raving fan, that you needed to do. And in her magazine, she says, this is wow. How do you, you're from, where's my buddy from Belarus? Okay, how do you say wow in Russian? Oh, okay, almost wow, right? So she says wow. Now help me, because you got glasses on and I don't. So what is the word wow?
The word, it's the word we use when no other will do. Wow.
Wow. How do you say it? Oh, okay. So when she says wow, you know you got a raving fan. And one of the 50 things that she was talking about was our beer. And one of the 50 things she should have been talking about was your bar. So how do we get wow to someone like Oprah Winfrey? And that's on our list. She talks about a beer and you can taste it across the way there. It's all about stories. Selling is about stories. Bars are about stories. Life is about stories. What is your story? Rugby is about stories. I mean, why do we go after the game and we hang out there and you remember Jackie Kyle, and if you remember Jackie Kyle, you're as old as I am, and Jackie Kyle was a great out half and so on, but we love to tell stories. So what are your stories? Because if you don't have stories in that pub, you won't be successful. People want to know how you make them feel. Companies who understand that the products are less important than the stories. Now, the products have to be reasonable. I didn't say brilliant, but they have to be reasonable. Everything is about that story. So are you telling your brand story? Jeff was telling us this morning, Jeff's from South Africa, and his wife is from South Africa, and now they're living in Florida, have a place in Florida. They came across an Irish pub. Jeff, why are you going to the pub?
Well, because I like the Irish. I'm with the Irish, but it was different. The eating experience was good. They had the singers, they had the dancers, and it's a good gathering place. Somewhere where my wife can go with her friends too.
Somewhere his wife can go. She feels comfortable. They're going to tell us some stories. That's what it's about. The story of our bourbon barrel ale, every great beer, every great restaurant, every great whiskey has to have a story. And that story needs to be the differentiator. So for example, you go to Jameson Whiskey Distillery this afternoon, you will see a photograph of my granddad. And he's the one there in the back, and he stands and he's got his bowler hat on. He was a cooper. It's a story. It's a story. What's your story? And that story of the barrels and the last cooper in Ireland was my uncle Robert. It's a story, and he was in Smithfield. It's a story. What is your story? And what's your pub story? Indeed, what's your life story? Aged in barrels, making us different. And how can we be different? We'll be different because we're 15 minutes from the bourbon whiskey distilleries. 15 minutes. We'll be different because that whiskey, that beer goes into a barrel which might have had whiskey in it for 5 years. That's why we're different. Does it mean we're better? No, it doesn't mean we're better. It means we're different. And that's our story. And you make money. You make money. Have a look here. And this wasn't me that did this. Next slide. This is a typical margin made on domestic, import premium, craft, high-end craft, Belgian ale. $600 net. That's what they make. Then along comes bourbon barrel ale in the snifter, served the right way, with the story, and the margin is $993. And that's why that beer with the story is the #1 craft beer in Ohio, and that beer outsells Sam Adams. Raving fans, because you have a story. Excellent. Here's my wife hates this. My wife of 41 years. She hates it. I say, don't get it right, get it going. And she says, yeah, then I'm going to have to pick up the pieces. And she has for 41 years. But I would say to each and every one of you, don't get it right, get it going. You're surrounded by naysayers. We drink too much as an Irish nation. We talk too much as an Irish nation. We sing too much as an Irish nation. Well, thank you very much. There are two types of people in this world. Those who are Irish, or those who wish to be Irish. So I'm in the first category, and lots of people are in the second category. So don't listen to the naysayers, guys. We have something special going in Irish pubs. The gathering. Don't get it right, get it going. I drove my people mad. I said, wow, I said, this is fantastic. And so we decided we'd do some events. And one of the events we decided to do was a craft brewing and distilling. And for 25 years, I've run craft brewing and distilling courses. So, well, why don't we do one in Ireland? And we gave ourselves 6 weeks. I said, don't get it right, let's just get it going. Well, let me tell you, with 3 weeks to go, we had 3 people. And we ended off with 3,000. What did that tell you? It told you there was a latent desire and a latent interest in craft brewing and distilling, in the same way as a huge interest in Irish pubs. And then we said, well, why don't we get a Dublin Cup, a brewing cup? And we had proper judges. And we said, okay, when you enter your beer in there, we're going to tell you, because that's my background. We're going to tell you what your beer is like. We're going to tell you the faults. Even more important, we're going to recommend what it is that you need to do. And this craft beer cup, the Dublin Craft Beer Cup, I go to Bangalore in India, and the guy's got his medal that he got in the Craft Brewers Cup in Dublin. I go to Auckland in New Zealand. He's got his medal that he got in Dublin. So we've reached out. We've touched something, and we made it happen. And because brewing and distilling and pubs, it's all about embracing and helping, we've decided that we're going to go back to what we did for a quarter of a century, and we're going to run a brewing and distilling school. One in Dublin and one in Kentucky. There's a demand. There's an interest. And incidentally, part of that brewing school is branding. And part of that brewing and distilling school is crisis management. And part of that brewing and distilling course is how do you motivate people? How do you get people to stay on your team? How do you, in fact, get them to buy into your vision? So there's our date for Dublin, the 7th and 8th of February next year. And also a whiskey. Okay, you guys are, how many of you are not from Ireland? Okay, how many are from Ireland? Okay, I want you to keep a secret, you Irish. I'll not tell my wife this. So I went up James's Street, and my dad grew up in Earl Street, South Earl Street, which is close to James's Street. And I saw this old church, about 300-400 years old. And I said, that would make a perfect distillery. My wife said, don't touch it. It's got this problem, that problem, the other problem. Well, here's the secret. That afternoon, I bought it. So there's your secret. You can get a discount from us if you bribe me or, threaten to tell Deirdre. She knows it now. But you get things going. And go back. Next slide. So that's our little church. And we're looking for names, Maybe the Holy Spirit, Namne Patris, et Filius, Spiritus Sanctus. Or maybe, what would you call it? It's in a church. It's whiskey. You won't have to worry about the sermons. You can just top it up as he goes on. What would you call it? Oh, Aoife. My daughter's name's Aoife. That's a great name. So what are you going to call it?
God's Gift.
God's Gift. Is that a good name? Okay. Josh, what would you call it? Fiddler on the Roof there. His name is Fiddler, okay?
I'm not sure. I have no ideas.
Of course you do. Josh's Downfall. So anyway, now we're looking for names for this whiskey. The Spirit of the Future with the Soul of the Past. That's pretty good. You like that? Pardon? Here's the guy who probably went, do you go off to be a priest, maybe?
Not at all.
What are you going to call it?
The Spirit moves.
Spirit moves. I like it. Divine inspiration. You, Jeff, you taking those, you South Africans have no ideas. You take those names down. These guys are good at rugby, but they're not good at names, right? So be part of a history, be part of the name. And that's raving fans, guys. Now you're involved. Hey, this is the competition, this is the name. Because life is about fun. And life's about an adventure. And we need one for Irish beer too. So let me wrap up and tell you the 7 secrets. And if you want to make me feel good, pretend you're writing them down. The 7 secrets, incidentally, this mic's much better. The 7 secrets. So secret number 1 is, what's the purpose? What's your purpose? You guys are thinking of opening something in Belarus, and I've been to Belarus many times. We have an office in Belarus. So what's the purpose of what you're trying to do there? So write down what your purpose is. pride, joy, the connection. Coca-Cola. Why is it that Coca-Cola rots your teeth, gives you diabetes, rusts nails, and yet they can get €5 a jug of it, and milk, which is good for you, great protein, high fat, low fat, and you only get 2. They have a purpose, they have an ideal. Coca-Cola. Place of pride, purpose, heritage, whatever it is. Do things differently. Rule number 2. Whatever it is, do things differently. Respect the other person, but do things differently. And so we did things differently. I don't particularly like IPA, but others like IPA. So we did things differently, we make that range. Our bars, things differently. This here are some of our bars. This actually is in our visitor center. The story, we're different. I'm Irish, guys, and so all the names are going to be Irish. They're not going to be Polish. They're not going to be Russian or Belarusian. They're going to be Irish, be different. So in your pub, your Irish pub, you need to have Irish names mixed up with Russian names, but be different. Give a purpose. Give a delight, something special. Pumpkin ale. I can think of nothing worse than putting pumpkin into a beer. But you know what? It's the #1 seasonal beer in America. So that's what they want, be different. But then we're going to make sure the pumpkin ale is a good ale. Be consistent. Be consistent with your brands. Don't be... The trouble with entrepreneurs, and I'm one, is like we're like a kid in a candy store. We see all these opportunities. You've got to be consistent. Set your program and stick to it. And make sure you don't divert and, oh, that's a great idea, that's a great idea. Be consistent. Use technology to build relationships. Brewers like to help brewers. Pub owners like to help pub owners. So build those relationships. Go visit other countries and you'll be amazed the ideas that you come back with. Identify your opportunity, whatever it is. There's my opportunity, and that's what I'm going to do. And so the gathering to us was a huge opportunity. And we used the gathering. It wasn't my idea, the gathering. It was the government's idea. But they threw that idea out. We said, you know what? We can use that idea. We can build a platform, and I think we've had 10 events built in and around the gathering. Be different. Our singers for the World Equestrian Games. Bourbon Barrel was the official beer of the World Equestrian Games, being different. Passion. Well, who are you going to buy from? What bar are you going to go to? You're going to go to a bar and go to, how are you doing? Well, you know, my mum doesn't like me. She likes my sister better. We don't have a sister. But if she did, she'd like her better. I mean, do you want a misery guts? Or do you want somebody with passion? And so we need passion and living with that passion. Raving fans. So have a purpose. Do things differently. Surprise people in your pub. Change things up. Be consistent with branding. Embrace technology. Identify opportunities and live passion. If you come around the world with me and you go to any of Alltech's exhibits, I don't care where it is, you will have our beer or Irish beer, an Irish pub. You will have Irish dancers. My son called me and he said, Dad, he lives in China, he said, Dad, it's fantastic, he said, got Irish dancers. I said, that's a big deal. He said, Dad, they're Chinese. So Chinese Irish dancers. They'll make anything, you're right. So these are the rules. Guys, we're with you. We're with you through the school we're going to run. We're with you through ideas on entrepreneurship, ideas on fun. Let's entertain, let's embrace, and let's move forward. I think the gathering was an incredible idea. But I think a bigger idea were those Irish pubs that I see in Ghana, that I see in Belarus, that I see all over the world. I see in Moscow, I see in Copenhagen, I see in Bucharest, I see in Budapest. What an amazing opportunity. So remember, it's the opportunity of a lifetime, but only if you jump on it in the lifetime of the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pal. Thanks, Grace. Thank you. Thank you very much.